Just a minute. We will begin here in just a minute. If you're caught in the winter storm that's causing some major travel problems for some people, or it could this coming weekend, well, while you're hanging out in the airport, you're listening to the Theology Central podcast. That will make your time in the airport better than everyone around you who are doing things like watching sports or movies or talking to their family or friends. No, you're listening to the Theology Central. Okay, all right. Nobody actually believes that, but okay. You know what I do need to do? I need to go to YouTube really quick. And the next door neighbor dog is barking his head off again. Of course, I go live. That's what they do. Oh, wait. Oh, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. No negative comments currently on YouTube. Is that, ladies and gentlemen, let's applaud that. All right. Nobody's saying anything mean. Okay. All right. How do we sound? No negative comment. You can hear the dog in the background when I'm listening to myself there. Oh, it drives me crazy. But there's not much I can do. You know, someone wants to send me a whole lot of money and I can try to find some ways to, soundproof the room, I guess. I could get, well, I don't know. I don't know what I could do. But hang on, let's go over here. Let's go to webcast. How many We are the only people broadcasting, because who's broadcasting on the Friday after Thanksgiving? No one but me. Other people are not broadcasting because they have a life. I'm broadcasting because I don't have one, okay? Or maybe my life is this microphone. Maybe all I have in life is this microphone. That's all I have. So maybe it's every broadcast is a cry for help. Yeah, I can't even speak correctly. All right, let's listen. Hang on, how do we sound? How do I sound? All I have in life. Okay, there we go. All right, close that. Here we go. Again, I don't expect anyone to be listening on the Friday after Thanksgiving. I doubt anyone's going to tune in. I'll just give it a couple of seconds here and we'll just see. All right. Oh, man, this episode's going to be way too long. My notes are way too long here. I'm going to have to try to move quickly, but we will see. All right. Oh, I know what I do need to do. Hang on. I do need to go to Theology Central. All right, let's go to sermons. All right. Okay, I think I can kind of take us through the progression of how we got here. It's kind of weird. I didn't really kind of realize we're kind of following a little pattern here, but we are. All right, I don't think anybody's going to tune in. Oh, wait, someone did. Ohio. Welcome, Ohio. Thank you so much for tuning in. I didn't think anybody would be tuning in on a Friday after Thanksgiving at noon. But if you are here, thank you so very much for tuning in. I really appreciate that. Someone from Ohio. I don't know if that's my longtime listener from Ohio who has helped me tremendously with some of the gifts that they have sent. Especially this month, okay? Thank you so very much for those gifts. If that's the listener that's listening, I don't know. But all right. Here we go. I think this should go well. I hope so. Well, hang on. Yeah, that should have us all set up. Got to make sure I have all my notes. I got way too many. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Friday, November the 28th, 2025. It is currently 12:01 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio located right here in Abilene, Texas. Well, if you've been listening over the past few days, you know we've kind of taken a little journey. I don't know if I didn't really have this all mapped out. I didn't really have this planned. It's just I kept turning on the microphone, and the next thing you know, I kind of found myself on a certain path, maybe leading me away from all the other things I need to be doing. But I think maybe this could ultimately, when we finally finish all of this, it will have been an interesting Thanksgiving trip that we took, an interesting Thanksgiving road trip that we took here on the Theology Central podcast. Now, some of you, I know you didn't bother to go on the road trip with me because you had other things to do. I know you had family, you had friends, you had games, you have food. I understand that. But for the rest of us, we decided, you know what, we're just going to take our own little road trip. So we hopped in the car and it's kind of been I know some of the time, some of you said, hey, stop the car. I need out because you're yelling too much. I understand. Okay. So yeah, there has been some, frustration on this road trip. Well, let's just explain what's going on. So we kind of started this by looking at how AI, there was a lot of things we did. This kind of started as a conversation about artificial intelligence, right? We had an episode about how AI we called it the AI flood. 3,000 episodes a week. We read this article about how AI can produce 3,000 podcast episodes every single week. And when I say produce those, they do everything. Write the script, do everything. The voice, everything is AI. 3,000 episodes per week. And that's barely scratching the surface. No, not the service. Well, I guess they're in service 24/7, but it's barely scratching the surface of what AI can actually produce. So I kind of brought that over into the church. How many sermons AI could produce week after week. And we looked at the numbers. The numbers were staggering. The Bible studies it can produce. And I'm like, look, AI is going to flood Christianity, whether you like it or not. And we're going to wake up one day and AI is going to become the number one biblical interpreter on this earth. Forget the Pope, forget the Catholic Church, forget pastors. AI is going to become the leading Bible interpreter, the leading Bible teacher on the face of the planet, whether you like it or not, okay? That's where we are headed. So that kind of got me started about AI. Well, the next thing you know, we saw that there's an AI Christian singer, completely artificial intelligence, who has a number one song right now. And so I told you to go check out I think his name is Solomon Ray, not a real person, not born in Mississippi, even though the description says created by AI, completely AI. So we looked at that. That was interesting. But you see, where were we going? We were taking kind of this Thanksgiving road trip all about artificial intelligence. So then I thought, well, wait a minute. AI is taking over Christian music. I'm already saying AI is going to become the number one Bible interpreter. I'm already saying how many sermons AI can write. Let's do an AI sermon experiment, right? So it was kind of interesting what we stumbled upon. AI wrote a sermon, but the sermon it wrote kind of followed what most people write, and I didn't like that, so I pushed back. AI made hermeneutical corrections. So then we started talking, we did over an hour talking about how to interpret or how to teach AI how to interpret the Bible. We didn't really complete that discussion, but it definitely sparked, I think, hopefully some ideas that we have to be, look, if AI is going to become the number one interpreter and interpreting the Bible, then if you're going to utilize it that way, which you're probably inevitably going to fall into, and maybe you're a part of the older generation and you will not, but the younger generation definitely is going to. We're going to have to, instead of training, I envision this, hey, this Saturday, instead of doing a series on how to study the Bible, we're going to do a series on how to teach you how to train AI to interpret the Bible correctly for you. See, you're going to have to know good hermeneutics in order to have AI use those good hermeneutics. And so, there was a lot there we could discuss. So we were kind of going in that direction. And then I kind of stumbled upon, well, you know what? It's Thanksgiving. Right now on Sermon Audio, there's like 50,000 sermons being uploaded all about Thanksgiving. And I felt like they all follow the same template, the same blueprint. It all sounds the same. It's just like, oh no. And so, I decided, I turned on the microphone and spent an hour outlining all the problems with all the Thanksgiving sermons. I know. I sound like being all negative, but I think I made some valid points that many of these Thanksgiving sermons are majorly problematic, not only theologically, but hermeneutically, and more importantly, they seem to deny reality. And so I criticized them. Well, after I did that, I said, well, was I being too harsh? Maybe I was being too critical. So what I decided to do is I picked 5 random sermons from Sermon Audio, downloaded the transcripts, uploaded the transcripts into artificial intelligence, and AI was like, this is a disaster. These sermons are everything you said was wrong with Thanksgiving sermons. These are the perfect examples. And if you chose them at random, it shows you how widespread the problem is. And I'm like, oh, what do I do now? Well, AI said, hey, the one you really need to look at is the one on Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19, because that thing, it puts the wreck in train wreck. It puts a disaster in disaster. I mean, it is a mess. It is one of the worst. I think AI said it's one of the worst it had ever seen. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty good honor when AI's like, hey, your sermon is the worst I have ever seen. So that's why I haven't mentioned the name of the sermon or the pastor, because AI ripped it apart. I mean, it tore it to shreds. And so I was like, wow. And so then I started thinking, how widespread is this problem with Luke 17, 11 through 19? What's the problem with Luke 17, 11 through 19? So then guess what we did? I turned on this microphone and I took a very honest look at Luke 17. If I say Luke 11, I keep doing that. Luke 17, 11 through 19. And I think I did something that most people don't do. At least most sermons don't do this. I laid out for you. I know this is not what you want to hear in a long road trip, me sitting in the driver's seat saying, all right, guys, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to explain to you every major interpretation on Luke 17, 11 through 19. It's like we're having a Thanksgiving meal and I walked around to each plate and instead of giving you any good food, I gave you, here's one of the major interpretations on Luke 17, 11 through 19. Chew on this for a while. And you're like, this Thanksgiving meal is trash. I understand, but it was worth your time to chew on it and to think about it. All right. So I went through 9 different popular interpretations of Luke 17, 11 through 19. Some like the moralistic reading, the salvation test reading, the faith equals obedience reading, the Samaritan as the outsider reading, kind of the therapeutic reading, the missional reading, the redemptive historical reading, the law gospel reading. I laid out 9 of them. All right. I don't know if that was all 9, but basically I think I kind of paraphrased that right there, but I laid out 9 of them. You can go back and listen to the entire episode for yourself so you can hear all 9. All right. And I think maybe one of the most valuable things I did by laying out all 9 is I think almost every interpretation, I think most of the interpretations out there, I think they missed the point. I think they missed the entire point of Luke 17, 11 through 19. I think Sunday school lessons missed the point of Luke 17, 11 through 19. Awana lessons misses the point of Luke 17, 11 through 19. Vacation Bible school misses the point of Luke 17, 11 through. I think everyone misses the stinking point. And why do they miss the point? Because I think every interpretation, even though they may claim to be doing so, they completely ignore the context. Now, pastors play it's deceitful. Oh, I'm not ignoring the context. I gave some background. I gave some geography. They make it sound like they're honoring the context, but then they ignore the context and the actual interpreting of the passage. See, context is wonderful if you provide, well, Jesus traveled 5 miles this way, then he turned northeast, and then he went here, and then, oh, here's a little bit background of leprosy, or here's a little background of the priest. But then if you don't bring in all of that that background information to the interpretation of the passage, then all you did was give background information that makes you as a speaker sound smart or authoritative, as if you've done some really good study. It's more about elevating the speaker than it is helping the audience. So background information can be given simply to give your sermon a sense of intelligence and great study, or you can give background information in order to help people properly understand the passage. And it's a fine line between those two, but I've seen the game played way too many times. And people are like, listen to this sermon. He gives historical background, he gives context, and I'm like, yeah. And then in his interpretation, he ignored everything he just gave in the background and the context. So why did he give that background and context? Oh, because he sounds smart. Drives me absolutely crazy. All right, so here's what we need to know about Luke 17, 11 through 19. And this is true of every passage in your Bible. You can't, I'm going to speak specifically of Luke 17 here. You can't rip Luke 17 out of Luke 17, right? You can't pull a story about lepers out of a book about collapsing covenant order. You can't isolate a Samaritan from a narrative shaped by temple, priesthood, purity laws, geography, and Jesus' deliberate march towards Jerusalem. But that's exactly what most sermons do, especially Thanksgiving sermons. Right? Thanksgiving sermons. They do that because they are going to say, this is where people open the Bible and like, oh, it's Thanksgiving. Let's make this passage about Thanksgiving, even if that's not really the main point of the passage. Oh, it drives me crazy. So you flatten the narrative. You moralize the story. Of course, that's what the church is always good at. You make it sentimental. You sentimentalize, if that's the word. You turn the miracle into something sentimental. You make the passage about one thing, your attitude and your gratitude. You don't really make it even about Jesus. You make it about your attitude and your gratitude. And I don't think any of that, this is my own personal feelings, I don't think any of that can survive even 5 minutes of serious contextual study. I think most sermons collapse with 5 minutes of any serious contextual study. I think they tend to collapse. They fall apart. That's my own, especially things like Thanksgiving sermons. Many Christmas sermons do the same thing. Mother's Day sermons. Whenever we follow the cultural calendar, we're like, oh, it's time to put together one of these messages because people are going to the Bible to find a sermon for Thanksgiving, and you don't do that. You go to the Bible to preach the text, irregardless of what's on the stinking calendar. So I'm going to begin today correcting the problem. So all of this is going to end up in kind of a mini series. All of this is going to end up in a mini series because we're going to do the work that I guess almost never gets done by most people. We're going to build the full textual and historical context that I believe is required to even stand a chance of interpreting the passage correctly. So we're going to build the textual and historical context for Luke 17, 11 through 19. All right, we're going to explore where Jesus is in this passage in Luke because it's a part of what we call the travel narrative. Most people don't even know about the travel narrative, yet they'll go to the verses or passages within the travel narrative and then interpret them apart from even knowing that it's a part of a travel narrative, which drives me crazy. We're going to look at why Luke is emphasizing geography here. Galilee, Samaria, Jerusalem. We're going to look at why ritual purity laws matter. We're going to look at why the priests matter. We're going to look at why lepers mattered, socially, religiously, and theologically. Why the Samaritan isn't just a sentimental detail. We're going to look at why Jesus sending them to the priest is not random. We're going to look at why Jesus, or why this miracle cannot be severed from Luke's theme of the collapsing old covenant system. We're going to look at why Jesus' journey to Jerusalem is the interpretive key to the entire section. Now, to be fair, when I put my notes together, I am in a hermeneutical argument with myself over what the interpretive key is. I think that there are two interpretive keys. I think one is a contextual key, and I think one is a theological key. If you just want that, I think the kind of the interpretive key is possibly, and it came to pass as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. I think that may be the contextual key, but I think the theological key may be verse 19. And he said unto him, arise. This is Jesus speaking to the leper. Arise. Number 2, go thy way. Number 3, thy faith made thee whole. I think there's the theological key in verse 19. I think 11 may be the contextual key by focusing on that geography there. At least I think so. I think so. I think there's two. And I'm still having a hermeneutical debate with myself, but you'll hear about all of that maybe in another episode, all right? And I think we're going to see why this miracle serves as a signpost in Luke's gospel, pointing beyond itself. So I guess what we're going to do today is we're going to put the story back where it belongs. Because if you do not know the textual context, if you do not know the historical context, if you do not know the covenantal context, if you do not know the geographical context, if you do not know the purity system context, if you don't know the narrative context, then you cannot interpret Luke 17 correctly. I know, shocking, but it's not. And guess what you'll do? This is a guarantee. You'll fall right into one of the 9 misreadings we exposed yesterday. You're just going to go right back to the misreadings. You're going to go right back to the Sunday school lesson, right back to the VBS lesson, right back to the same garbage the church puts out day in and day out. And I get sick of it. I get tired of it. I start choking on all of the garbage. It's like a bad Thanksgiving meal. But it's a Thanksgiving sermon. Oh, Pastor, it was so good. Yeah, okay, whatever. You have no clue what the passage is actually about, but you think it was so good because it had something to do with Thanksgiving, and you go to church and you got to hear something about Thanksgiving during Thanksgiving, even if the passage has nothing to actually do with Thanksgiving. So I guess what I need you to do is grab a notebook, open your Bible. Let's forget the Thanksgiving cliches. Let's forget the Sunday school moralism. Let's definitely forget the whole sentimental approach. Sentimentality, if I can say the word correctly. Let's step into the world of Luke, not into the world of America Thanksgiving time. Let's step into a journey to Jerusalem, not a journey to grandma's house. Let's step into the fading light of the old covenant. Let's step into the tension between priesthood and Messiah, temple and Christ, purity laws, and the one who redefines them. Today, we build the foundation. Today is the day of textual and historical context and background for Luke 17, 11 through 19. Now, I know my intro's already gone long, but I took you through a journey of exactly how we have arrived at this very moment. Now, what I need to do is try to build all of this, and it's going to take a while. So we may have to break this into 2 separate parts. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want to go too long. So I'm just going to have to look here at the clock right here in front of me. The seconds are ticking by, and I'm going to just have to stop when I have to stop. So are you ready? Let's start with number 1, ladies and gentlemen. Write these down. Let's start with the broader narrative. There is a larger narrative at stake here, all right? Luke 17, 11 through 19 does not just simply float in isolation. It's not just levitating itself above It's within something larger. It sits inside kind of a massive section of the Gospel of Luke that goes all the way from, go to Luke chapter 9, verse 51. Go to Luke chapter 9, verse 51, and you'll read these words. Luke 9:51, and it came to pass when the time was come that he, speaking of Jesus, should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to, where, class? Jerusalem. It goes from Luke 9:51 all the way to Luke 19:44. Scholars tend to refer to this as, and it's easy for you to remember, Luke's travel narrative. Luke's travel narrative. You could call it Jesus' journey to his death. You can call it Luke's travel narrative or Jesus' journey to his death. But you have to see that then Luke 17, 11 through 19 fits within this narrative. You can't just interpret it apart from the narrative, meaning there's something more going on than just have an attitude of gratitude. You're so destroying the deeper meaning in the passage. So here's what I need you to understand. And this travel narrative, the journey is not random. It's not accidental. It's not incidental. It's deliberate, it's intentional, it's theological, it's prophetic, and it's covenantal. All right? Luke 9:51 then is the hinge. He set his face to go to Jerusalem. That means everything that follows, Luke 9:51, everything that follows until he arrives at Jerusalem is shaped, in a sense, by the shadow of the cross. Every parable, every miracle, every confrontation, every teaching, every healing, every single encounter with a Pharisee, at the synagogue, or a tax collector, or a sinner. It all is... It's all shaped by the shadow of the cross. You can think of it that way. Every one of those encounters are shaped by this larger travel narrative, Jesus' journey to his death. So you have to interpret those things in light of this bigger narrative. If you don't, you're just ripping it out of context. And I think in a roundabout way, Luke, as a writer, is wanting you to feel this, sense this. Jesus is moving towards the very place where the old covenant is going to unravel. He's going to go to the place where sacrifice will be offered, the ultimate sacrifice, the final sacrifice. He's going to go to the place of the priesthood. He's going to go to the place of the temple. He's going to go to the place of sacrifice. And he's going to go where the entire Mosaic order will meet their fulfillment in the one taking this journey. Jesus is going to ultimately fulfill the entire Mosaic system. So when Luke places 10 lepers on this road to Jerusalem, he is saying something theologically. He's not saying something about Thanksgiving. He's saying something theologically. Think of it this way. The healing of the 10 lepers is a part of that final movement of redemptive history. The cleansing is happening outside of the temple. The act of restoration is bypassing the priesthood. The miracle is happening on the road to the cross. If you don't see that, you're missing the whole point. It's not a Thanksgiving story. I don't know how many times I have to say that. It's not a Thanksgiving story. It's a covenant story. It's a kingdom story. It's a priesthood story. It's a temple story. It's a story about where does cleansing actually come from? So the first thing you have to see is the broader narrative. The broader narrative, we call this the Luke's travel journey or Jesus' journey to his death. Everything that happens between Luke 9:51 and Luke 19:44 is happening under the shadow of the cross. The shadow of the cross, it just goes over this entire section. And everything is, you can kind of see there's the cross. You see its shadow. And as you're going through Luke 9:51 through Luke 9:44, you're moving further and further and further towards the shadow of the cross until you arrive at the actual cross itself. So that makes you have to at least stop when you're preaching or teaching these and go, wait a minute, how do I understand this, a part of this larger narrative? If you don't do that, then all you're doing is looking for a ridiculous Thanksgiving sermon. So this leads us to the second. So the first is the broader narrative. Secondly, the geography. Look at Luke 17:11. Look at Luke 17:11. And it came to pass as he, Jesus, went to Jerusalem. Okay, there's the going towards Jerusalem, keeping us in that larger narrative, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. Another translation has it, on the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. This is not a travel note because the entire journey, the entire travel narrative is, in a sense, a theological narrative. So in a sense, when you see that he's passing along between Samaria and Galilee, don't put that down as a travel note. It's a theological location. And think of it this way. Jesus is kind of standing on a borderline, a place of crossing, a place of tension, a place where the categories of insider and outsider begin to blur, right? The insider are the Jews, the outsiders is everyone else, right? Well, now it begins to blur. It begins to blur a little bit. It begins to blend together because Galilee represents kind of Jewish territory, and Samaria represents the despised other, the half-breed, the religious heretic, the covenant outsider, the people Jesus believes should, well, I should not say Jesus, the people, the Jews, that's what I should say. The people the Jews believe should not receive God's blessing. Obviously, Jesus didn't think that about the Samaritans. The Jews believed that. I talk about misspeaking. The Jews believed that the Samaritans should not receive God's blessing. When he travels here, it's right in between this tension. It mentions both Galilee and Samaria. The tension is here. Galilee represents Jewish territory. Samaria then represents the despised other. And remember, the Samaritans are the half-breeds. They would be considered the religious heretics. They would be considered the covenantal or the covenant outsiders. And they would be the people, not Jesus, but the Jews believe should not receive God's blessing. They don't deserve God's blessing. Jesus obviously thinks differently about this. And he's right there now in this theological tension. And the geography puts you in the theological tension. So think about it this way. This miracle with these 10 lepers is taking place kind of on this theological fault line. Right? This fault line of ethnic, religious, kind of I guess their covenantal, racial, ethnic identity is all at stake as well in this situation. So in a roundabout way, what Luke is saying here is, hey, the kingdom is breaking boundaries. The gospel is invading places the old covenant would never reach in any significance. Or we could say it this, the Messiah is going to cleanse people the priesthood would avoid. Maybe, possibly. All right. So we have the narrative, Jesus' journey to his death, the travel narrative. And number two, we have the geography between Galilee and Samaria. That is a theological location. It's not simply geography. It's not simply, if the pastor just gives that to you as a geographical note to sound smart, no, it's a theological location more than anything, right? Number three, we enter into the world of leprosy, impurity, exclusion, and the temple system. We have a lot going on here with this kind of point number 3, giving us this context and historical background, right? We step into the world of leprosy. This would include impurity, exclusion, and the entire temple system. You got to know that because, I think that's the key to understanding Luke 17, 11 through 19, and we'll talk about that, all right? I think I can say it this way. Well, I know I can say this. You cannot interpret this passage. There's no, you can't even come close unless you understand the world of biblical leprosy. You have to, all right? And it's not what we call Hansen's disease. Sometimes we try to conflate leprosy then with kind of Hansen's disease today. And I think we can't do that. We got to separate them, all right? Because biblical leprosy covered a wide range of skin conditions. But the real idea of leprosy was ritual impurity more than anything else. So just when you think of biblical leprosy, it's a wide range of conditions. It's not just one. I know sometimes we like to grab onto one aspect of it and say leprosy, and then therefore we can draw out a metaphor or a picture, typically of sin and that kind of thing. But just remember, it's more about ritual impurity. Leprosy, of all the conditions that were included under that general heading, would make you ritually impure. The ritual impurity is more important than the physical disease as far as trying to understand how it's being used, okay? So if you need Leviticus 13 and 14 is kind of the background. Now, I don't have time now to go read Luke 13 and 14, but if you really want to understand Luke 17, or did I say Luke 13 and 14? Leviticus 13 and 14. If you want to understand Luke 17, 11 through 19, you can't understand it without understanding Leviticus 13 and 14, all right? So I'm going to just kind of summarize Luke 13 through Leviticus 13 through 14. They both start with an L. Give me a break, okay? So you can't understand Luke 17, 11 through 19, unless you understand Leviticus 13 through 14. All right, did I get it right? Okay, good. All right. Now, I'm just going to try to summarize here. Leviticus 13 and 14, I almost did it again. Leviticus 13 through 14 is the background. So a leper, no matter what condition it is describing, is unclean, ritually impure. A leper, again, according to Leviticus 13 through 14, is cut off from the community. According to Leviticus 13 through 14, a leper cannot go to the temple. Leviticus 13 through 14 would also say a leper cannot offer any sacrifices. This is again Leviticus 13 through 14. Leviticus 13 through 14 would seem to also indicate that a leper cannot experience, at least in some ways, the presence of God within the tabernacle or the temple. A leper cannot participate in worship. And a leper, in a sense, is symbolically, at least to a level, symbolically dead. He's a walking picture of alienation. Out, get away, you're unclean, go. Whatever skin condition leprosy is being used to describe, you still end up with all of it. In other words, if it's a what seems like a smaller skin condition or a severe skin condition, it didn't matter how you want to quantify the level of the condition, you still ended up alienated and kicked to the curb, per se. And I think this is critical because then only a priest could declare a leper clean. The only way the leper could be declared clean is a priest would have to examine them. Only a priest could restore a person to the community. Only a priest could pronounce the verdict of restoration. Please note that. Only a priest could declare a leper clean. Only a priest could restore a person to the community. Only a priest could pronounce the verdict of restoration. And what do you have happening in Luke 17, verse 19? And he said unto him, that's Jesus, arise, go thy way, thy faith have made thee whole. Whoa, wait a minute. only a priest can do this. Jesus is literally taking the role of a priest. This is more of the theological point of the story, not, oh, have an attitude of gratitude. So when Jesus has this encounter with the 10 lepers, this is not necessarily a story of a sick person asking God for help. This is more of a story of an unclean person seeking cleansing. The outsider seeking entry and the cutoff seeking restoration. There's something far deeper going on here. These people are not just maybe physically broken or physically, depending on we don't know the severity or exactly what their condition is, but we know they're completely religiously exiled. So let's go through these again. The historical context. These are the things you need to know. Number one, the broader narrative. What is the broader narrative, class? Luke's travel narrative or Jesus' journey to his death. However you want to label the travel journey, okay? Or the travel narrative. All right, number two, the geography. Between Galilee and Samaria, it's not just a geographical location. It is more so a theological location, and this theological tension between these almost two separate worlds. Number three, the world of leprosy. I tried to explain that. What is the background of Luke 17, 11 through 19 is Leviticus 13 through 14. You want to understand Luke 17, 11 through 19? Become an expert on Leviticus 13 through 14. There you go. Next, why does Jesus send them to the priest? Look at Luke 17, 14. Luke 17, 14. And when he saw them, that's Jesus seeing these 10 lepers, he said unto them, go shew yourselves unto the priest. Another translation, go and show yourselves to the priest. This command is not random. It's not arbitrary. Is it a test of obedience? Is it a way to make them walk in faith? Is it a moral lesson? I don't think it is. I don't think it's random. I don't think it's arbitrary. I don't think it's a test of obedience. I don't think it's a way to make them walk in faith. I don't think it's a moral lesson. I don't think it's any of those things. I think this is Jesus operating inside the Mosaic system in order to expose that system is passing away. He's operating within it to expose it as, hey, this whole system is going away. In a sense, Jesus is saying, you want to be restored? The law says the priest must declare you clean. But I'm the one who cleanses you. I am the new priest. I am the true temple. I am the source of restoration. And that's how the story plays out, is it not? See, Jesus sends them to the priest after he heals them, not so that the priest can heal them, but so the priesthood will be confronted with the power they cannot deny. See, the miracle is a sign. The cleansing you spent your whole life seeking in the temple cannot be found in that temple, can only be found in me. They can never truly cleanse you. They can truly never make you ritually pure. This is about the collapse of this entire system, which Jesus is operating inside of. The more you understand the system, you see how Jesus is, in a sense, almost, I won't say subverting, he's flipping the entire system upside down. He's flipping the tables of the old system, if you want to use that metaphor. All right, so what do we have here? Okay, are we ready? Let's go through this again. I'm moving quickly, all right? I can't, remember, this is not the exegetical study. I'm just laying down the foundation, all right? So number one, we have the broader narrative. What is that narrative called, class? Come on. Luke's travel narrative or Jesus' journey to his death. Everybody got that? Number two, the geography between Galilee and Samaria. That's a theological location. We talked all about all it means. We have the world of leprosy. We talked all about the world of leprosy and everything that goes on there. Next, why does Jesus send them to the priest? We just talked all about that. Next, The Samaritan. The Samaritan. Please note, if you look at the text, okay, one of them sees that he is clean and turns back, and look at verse 16, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And he was a Samaritan. That's the point. He was a Samaritan. This is not a sentimental detail. This is a redemptive, historical, or I should say it this way. I'm going to make it more dramatic. This is redemptive, historical dynamite. That's what this is, okay? It's not some sentimental, oh, look, it's the Samaritans giving thanks, right? Don't be like the other people. No, there's something more going on here. Because in this case, the outsider becomes the model of true response. The religious seem to reject. The impurity labeled man gives glory to God. The one who cannot enter the temple runs to the true temple, Christ. In a sense, this is like Luke screaming at you. The kingdom is expanding beyond Israel. The walls are coming down. The people least expected to receive grace are the ones receiving it. The ones most confident in their covenantal identity are the ones missing the Messiah. That's like theological dynamite right there. And it's a Samaritan. Shockwaves. Right? So there's the Samaritan. We'll just call this the Samaritan. It's a quick point, but I just want you to see it. All right, next. Jesus' identity. Oh, this is so key in the background here, right? Because Jesus here is being, I know it may seem like you can't see it, but I think if you pay attention, the identity of Jesus here, he becomes the new temple, the new priest, and the new source of cleansing. And it all happens in a very kind of subtle way. See, when the Samaritan returns and falls at Jesus' feet, something significant is going on here, right? He's doing what one is supposed to be doing in the temple. He's offering praise and thanksgiving before the presence of God. That's what you're supposed to be doing in the temple, right? He is performing the purification liturgy, in a sense, in front of, Jesus instead of a priest. So everything this Samaritan is supposed to go do and what they're supposed to do in the temple to the priest, this is all being bypassed, and it's all happening, to Jesus. So this is all a theological act, right? He's bypassing the priesthood. He's bypassing the temple. He's bypassing the entire sacrificial system. And he comes to Jesus at the place where the cleansing actually happened. And look what Jesus does. He receives all of it. He doesn't redirect him. Whoa. No. Go to the temple. Go to the priest. He doesn't do that. He doesn't say, what are you doing? Stop. He accepts the posture of worship. He accepts it all. Which kind of raises the real question of the passage. Who is this Jesus that can be approached, worshiped, and thanked as the source of the cleansing? Who is this Jesus subverting the entire Mosaic system here, in a sense? I don't know if I necessarily want to use the word subverting, but you get the idea. He's turning it upside down. And I think, is that kind of the heart of Luke's gospel? Jesus is the place where God dwells. Jesus is the place of restoration. Jesus is the priest who pronounces someone clean. Jesus is the temple where the presence of God resides. Jesus is the one who will soon accomplish the final cleansing at Jerusalem. This is not a gratitude lesson. This is the revelation of the Messiah and the arrival of the kingdom of God. So let's go through these again, class. You ready? going to back these up. I know some people hate when I'm repetitive like this, but I tend to be repetitive like this because in my mind, it's like I'm teaching a live audience, and I'm going to go back and repeat the outline countless times until I know everyone in the church has written it down, all right? So, number one, we have the broader narrative. What is the broader narrative called, class? Luke's travel narrative or Jesus' journey to his death. Number two, the geography. This is a theological location more than it is a geographical location. It's between Galilee and Samaria and all of the theological tension that comes with that. Number three, the world of leprosy. Remember, the world of leprosy in the Bible is not the world of leprosy that we think it is. It involves all kinds of skin conditions, not just what we would think of the horrible cases of leprosy. So just keep that in mind, all right? It invokes a lot of things. Leviticus 13 and 14 is the background. All right. Next, why does Jesus send them to the priest? We went into great detail there. Next, the Samaritan. All right. This is not just this is a theological earthquake in the text. It's a Samaritan. Oh, what? All right. Next, Jesus' identity. This is really central to the whole thing. He's the new temple. He's the new priest. He is the source of cleansing. He's, in a sense, flipping the entire Mosaic system upside down there. All right. Then, your faith. We see that at the end of 19. Your faith, thy faith have made thee whole. Your faith has made you whole. Man, just remember that line has created major controversy and theological interpretations, okay? The Greek here is your faith. I mean, if we just look at it, maybe for time's sake, I want to skip this, but I'm going to go here. Open up the Blue Letter Bible app, just because there's so much controversy surrounding this phrase that I think it's good for you just to look at it for yourself. If you go to Luke chapter 17, I don't know why I'm Luke 20, Luke 17, go to verse 19, go to the interlinear, hath made whole. It's this Greek word.
Strong's G 4982. Sozo. Sozo.
Sozo. It is used 110 times. That means there's a lot of different ways. Strong's definition is safe, to save, deliver, protect, literally or figuratively, heal, preserve, do well, make whole. A lot of different translations. The outline of biblical usage: to save, keep safe, sound, to rescue from danger or destruction, to save a suffering one from perishing or suffering from disease, to make well, to heal, to restore, to health, to preserve one who is in danger of destruction, to save or rescue. I mean, there's so many different ways it can be used. So people will read that and they just bring anything into it, right? Well, obviously within the context, first and foremost, your faith has made thee whole. You are completely now ritually pure and you're cured from your disease. A lot of people will do a lot of things with this and go a lot of different directions, okay? So the faith has made you, saved you, restored you, made you whole. I think the phrase also appears, if I remember correctly, I can look these up. Hang on. I could just look them up and make sure that I'm correct, but I'm going to just turn to each one. I'm not going to say anything until I look at it. I don't want to be wrong here. So, because, we want to be exegetically correct. Yeah, Luke 7:50, and he said to the woman, thy faith hath saved thee, go in peace. Same Greek word, the same phrase coming from that same Greek word is used right there. Luke 8:48. Luke 8:48, I believe it's 48. Yes, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith have made thee whole. Go in peace. And then Luke 18:42, it also is used. And Jesus said unto him, receive thy sight, thy faith hath saved thee. So Luke uses this phrase at least four times. In Luke 7:50, 8:48, Luke 17:19. Yeah, Luke 17:19 and Luke 18:42. So it's used all of those times in the Gospel of Luke. In each case, it appears, now we could have to go put those rest of those in some kind of textual context. It seems to mark a kind of a deeper restoration from physical healing. I think that's a pretty obvious, right? But does it signal something deeper going on? Not just recovery of the body. Is it signifying something deeper, like maybe salvation? That's where a lot of people will get into a lot of discussion and debate here, right? But you got to see this. Jesus does not condemn the 9. He doesn't declare them lost, which everyone wants to turn this into a soteriological argument. I don't think that's the point here at all. I think he simply points at the absence of worship and the presence of something deeper in the Samaritan. All right? The point is not that the 9 are ungrateful or unsaved. The point is that the Samaritan is showing what the system cannot ultimately give. Christ is the priest. Christ is the temple. Christ is the source of cleansing. The point is about Christ. It's not so much it's the Samaritan recognizing this, and the Samaritan, the outsider, is being used to declare what Christ ultimately is in a very theologically shocking way. So the last there is your faith has made you whole. Now I'm at 51 minutes, all right? So that's the historical background context. That's everything. I could go back through all of them again. I won't, because I'll go back and review that. In time's sake, I can't get through all of I want to do here for my conclusion here. So I think ultimately we have to ask ourselves, what does this context, or what this context ultimately destroys? Well, once we have the context, what does it destroy? And I think it destroys the common misreadings. I think if you get the context down, the misreadings are destroyed. And I think if you get the context down, you wouldn't be satisfied in most churches listening to the garbage being preached, because they preach sermons instead of teaching the text. See, once all this context is in place, I think something becomes crystal clear. This passage is not about thankfulness. I think it destroys the moralistic Thanksgiving sermon type reading. I think it destroys that don't be like the 9 approach. I think it destroys only one had saving faith idea. I think it destroys the idea that this is a lesson about gratitude. I think this destroys the idea that obedience brings blessing. And I think it destroys the entire therapeutic wholeness model. Because when you look at the context, this is a priesthood text. This is a temple text. This is a covenant text. This is the identity of Jesus text. This is a kingdom text. It's not a devotional on gratitude. Now, why does the context matter? Because before you interpret Luke 17, 11 through 19, you have to understand Jesus is on the road to Jerusalem. The cross is coming. The temple is fading. The priesthood is being replaced. The purity laws are giving way to a new cleansing. The kingdom is breaking boundaries. The outsider is being brought into the people of God. The insiders are missing their Messiah. Jesus is the new place of worship. Jesus is the new priest. Jesus is the new temple. Now, I know trying to write all of that down will take you, if I was doing this at church, this would be the entire sermon, having you write all of this down. So let me just go through this one more time, and then you can back up this audio when it's available on demand. Jesus is on the road to Jerusalem. The cross is coming. The temple is fading. The priesthood is being replaced. The purity laws are giving way to a new cleansing. The kingdom is breaking boundaries. The outsider is being brought into the people of God. The insiders are missing their Messiah. Jesus is the new place of worship. Jesus is the new priest. Jesus is the new temple. And once you see all of that, finally, Luke 17, 11 through 19 begins to breathe. It begins to come alive, since the church has been killing it for decades. So if we look at all of the context and all of the background, I think we can say this is not a Thanksgiving story. This is not a moral lesson about gratitude. This is not, let's test and see which lepers are saved kind of nonsense. This event is intentionally placed in the travel narrative, in Jesus' journey to his death narrative. This is not about manners. It's about the priesthood. It's about purity. It's about covenant. It's about the identity of Jesus. The Samaritans returned to Jesus as a theological act. It's not simply a gratitude. Jesus is obviously functioning. I know I'm being repetitive, but I want you to see this. The new priest, the new temple, the new source of cleansing. The narrative is anticipating the collapse of the old system. The miracle is revealing that the kingdom is breaking in, not merely gratitude emerging. The passage exposes how humanity responds, not how we ought to improve our thankfulness. It stops being this kind of ridiculous moral lesson and becomes a moment of revelation on the road to the cross. So here's what I want you to do. Here's your homework. 56 minutes. I need you to open up Luke chapter 14 sometime this weekend, sometime before I come back live on the air, never knowing when that's going to be. So you better just stop everything what you're doing right now, okay? All right. Pull the car over. I know you're driving home or driving somewhere, and you're with the family, and they're like, turn this guy off, and all of a sudden I'm going to tell you to pull the car over and say, nobody is going anywhere until we finish this homework, okay? Yeah, they probably won't love you for doing that, but I need you to open up your Bible and turn to Leviticus 14, and I need you to make a list of the 8 separate requirements for a leper that's going to be cleansed. What are the 8 separate steps for a cleansed leper? All right? What are the 8 steps? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 requirements. This Samaritan doesn't follow these 8 requirements, and Jesus doesn't tell him to go. There's something going on here. That's what everyone misses in this text. What are those 8 requirements? If you can't tell me the 8 requirements that a cleansed leper was supposed to take according to Leviticus 14, and you're going to start arguing me about Luke 17, 11 through 19, I know at this point there's no point in having the discussion with you or argument with you, because I'm dealing with someone who's hermeneutically not even able to have the good conversation. You got to know what the 8 requirements were. I have them written down right here. You want me to give them to you? Number 1 is go. I'm not going to say where. 2, undergo I'm not going to tell you what. Not going to tell you what they're going to kill. All right? I'm not going to tell you any of that. But Luke 14 should give you a pretty good indicator. Now, what we will do in part 3, we actually finished this, is we're going to walk verse by verse through the text, using this context as our foundation. Actually, what we may do in part 3, I may kind of give you my internal debate I'm having with myself. Is there one hermeneutical key or is there 2? Typically in a passage of scripture, you always need to identify what's the hermeneutical key. Like when people start debating, sometimes I just want to raise, what's the hermeneutical key? And then everyone looks at you. No, you've got to identify the hermeneutical key. Because if your hermeneutical key is this, and this person's hermeneutical key is that, there's no point in arguing because you're looking at the text from 2 different hermeneutical keys. Some people don't even know that there is a hermeneutical key. Not all passages. I think most, you have to spend the time figuring out what is the hermeneutical key? What is the key that unlocks the interpretation? Now, to me, you can go with Luke 17:11, but I think that's kind of the contextual key, right? I think that's the contextual key. But to me, verse 19 is the interpretive key, the theological key. That's my own thoughts, all right? So maybe we will do that first in part 3, and then part 4, then we'll just break it down exegetically. Once we have all of this down, I think exegetically it falls into place relatively quick. We don't have to do a lot of work. Or maybe we can just spend some more time. We got other passages that we're currently breaking down as well. But there you have it. That's Luke 17:11 through 19, the historical, contextual background, trying to prevent the 9 common misreadings of Luke 17:11 through 19. And trying to do something that, Thanksgiving sermons don't do, because Thanksgiving sermons would not have taken all of this time that we've taken with the passage. Why? Because they needed a sermon, not because they wanted to study the text. I cannot stress this enough to you. Until you see the difference between sermons and studying the text, then you're hopelessly lost in the world of churchianity. And churchianity will give you lots of sermons, but in many cases, those sermons keep you 500,000 miles away from the actual text. All while deceiving you, thinking you went to church to study the Bible. These texts require lots of work, and there's so much going on. All right, there you have it. There's your Black Friday deal. You are able to get 60 minutes of teaching for the very low price of free. That's your Black Friday. But it's every day is Black Friday day on Theology Central, because we don't put anything behind a paywall. But we always do support any gift that you give, because it goes a long ways in helping us be able to, do this. And so thank you so very much. If you ever would like to support what we're trying to do, you can go to theologycentral.net, hit the donate tab, or right there on Sermon Audio, or the Church One app, or the Sermon Audio app, look up Theology Central and simply hit the give tab. All right. And we do appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Until next time, God bless.